Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today we're looking at a story that touches on something deeply, universally human. We're going to explore the profound value of unseen work. In a world where literally every single achievement seems to be broadcasted, liked, and shared for the masses, there is this quiet, incredibly powerful force found in the duties that happen entirely out of the spotlight. So let's set a reflective tone here, because we're going to walk through a fable, a story called The Invisible Duty of the Light Bearer. It's a really powerful narrative that challenges pretty much everything we are taught about success and recognition.
And it brings us to this essential question. What happens when nobody notices your hard work? Seriously, think about that for a second. We've all had those moments where we put our absolute all into something and just crickets, right? Well, to explore this, our source introduces us to a young man named Rohan. Rohan is a lighthouse keeper. He lives on this lonely cliff overlooking a constantly stormy, super unpredictable sea. He is the solitary guardian of an old lighthouse, and his story is about to really challenge how we view our own daily grind.
Section 1. The Lonely Routine. Rohan's Daily Grind. Let's look at how Rohan's journey actually begins. When he first took on this immense responsibility, he absolutely loved the job. He had this deep, swelling sense of pride. He'd look at the old lighthouse and know, with absolute certainty, that ships out in those dangerous waters were totally depending on him. He was the guardian of the coast. But as with all things, that initial excitement began to fade, giving way to the harsh reality of the daily task. And the reality of that task was a seriously grueling cycle. Every single evening, without fail, as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, Rohan climbed hundreds of steep, exhausting steps to light the great lamp at the top. And every morning, he climbed all the way back down, day after day, year after year. The exact same routine, the exact same lonely work. The sheer monotony of climbing hundreds of stairs, in complete isolation, really begins to weigh heavy on his shoulders. The physical drudgery slowly morphs into this massive mental burden. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast. As time passed, the source notes that travelers would come by and admire the grand architecture of the lighthouse. Sailors out at sea would praise the bright, guiding light. But Rohan began to feel completely invisible. I mean, nobody thanked him. Nobody applauded his daily, exhausting effort. No one remembered the actual guy who physically climbed those stairs every single day to make that light possible. They loved the results, but they entirely ignored the creator. Section 2. The Storm of Doubt. A Winter Night. One winter night, the physical weather perfectly matches his internal turmoil. A massive storm strikes the coast. Rain crashes against the windows. Thunder is literally shaking the cliffs. The wind is screaming like a wild animal. It is violently dark and incredibly dangerous outside. Rohan is sitting in his quarters, staring out at the violent sea, and this exact thought just hits him. What's the point? No one notices what I do anyway. He is frustrated. He is bone-tired. And for the very first time in years of dedicated service, he seriously considers skipping his duty. Just once. Just for this one single night. Because really, what difference could it make if the invisible man takes one night off? Section 3. The Keeper's Secret. An Old Notebook. So as Rohan sits there, right on the brink of abandoning his post, his attention is drawn to this object in the room. It's an old notebook. He realizes it actually belonged to the previous lighthouse keeper. Curious, and honestly just looking for a distraction from the storm outside and the storm in his own head, Rohan opens it up. Inside, he finds a record of entries spanning across entire decades. He turns the page and reads this entry. Tonight the sea was calm. No ships passed. Still lit the lamp. Just sit with that for a moment. This previous keeper worked night after night, decade after decade, without any grand achievements. There was no fame, no widespread recognition, just the quiet dignity of doing the work, even when the conditions were perfectly calm and it seemed completely unnecessary. He turns to another page and reads, "Heavy rain. Nobody will ever know I climbed these stairs tonight. Still lit the lamp." And wow, this brilliantly illustrates a legacy built entirely on invisible consistency. The previous keeper knew full well that his physical suffering, his wet clothes, his tired muscles, nobody was ever going to know about it. But he did it anyway. He still lit the lamp. And page after page told the exact same story. Feeling tired, lit the lamp anyway. The repetition is just striking. It wasn't about motivation. It wasn't about being seen. It was simply about duty. Rohan is reading this, and this steady drumbeat of quiet dedication sets up a profound realization that is about to completely shift his entire worldview. So the crucial point is right here. Rohan finds a final entry written shortly before the old keeper retired, detailing this. Most important work is often invisible. The purpose of the lighthouse is not to be noticed. Its purpose is to guide others safely home. Rohan just sat quietly with those words. For the first time, he realized he'd been measuring his work the completely wrong way. He had been working for recognition, but the true value of his work was never in being seen. It was simply in helping others. Section 4. The Unseen Impact. A guiding light. Empowered by this massive perspective shift, Rohan's determination totally returns. That night, despite the screaming wind pushing against him, despite the freezing rain completely soaking his clothes, he steps out of his quarters. He starts climbing the stairs. Step after agonizing step, he fights the elements, driven no longer by the hope of applause, but by the sheer purpose of the lighthouse itself. Let's see how this actually builds into something incredible. Step 1. Rohan successfully climbs the hundreds of stairs in the storm and lights the lamp. Step 2. That bright beam pierces through the darkness, stretching for miles across the chaotic sea. Step 3. Unknown to Rohan, miles away, a struggling cargo ship with a lost captain spots that exact light and immediately corrects its course. And finally, Step 4. The ship reaches safety. Lives are saved, families are ultimately reunited, and Rohan remains entirely unaware. He never knew the struggle he endured that night literally kept a disaster from happening. His impact was massive and completely unseen. Section 5. Passing the Torch, a New Apprentice. We fast forward in the source material here. Years and years have passed. Rohan grew old continuing this work. He didn't do it because people praised him, and he certainly didn't do it because climbing those stairs got any easier. He did it because he had internalized the old keeper's secret. He worked simply because he was useful. He understood something that, frankly, most people never learn in their entire lives. His hard-earned wisdom boils down to this. Success isn't about being noticed. It's about being useful. Eventually, the day comes for Rohan to retire, and a young apprentice arrives at the lonely cliff to replace him, ready to take over those hundreds of daily stairs. Right before Rohan leaves, the young apprentice asks him this profound question. What is the secret to living a meaningful life? Rohan smiles, points up at the massive structure, and gives this incredibly striking answer. The light doesn't shine for itself. It shines for others, and that's why it matters. The apprentice thinks about this for a second and asks the natural follow-up. But what if nobody notices? And Rohan just laughs softly. His answer? Then shine anyway. Section 6. Shine Anyway, Your Unseen Tasks. Let's step out of the fable of Rohan and the stormy sea for a minute and talk about you and me. Let's talk about the real-world application of this story. Because, we all have our own lighthouses. We all have those hundreds of steps we have to climb every day in our jobs, in our families, in our communities, tasks that just feel totally invisible and thankless. The source makes a deeply poignant observation here. The world is absolutely full of people who stop trying the second they don't receive recognition. They stop working when nobody applauds, and they stop showing up when no one is watching them. But the truth is, true greatness is built by people who continue lighting the lamp, even when the crowd is completely gone, even when they feel totally invisible. So, the moral of this explainer is beautifully simple, yet, let's be honest, incredibly difficult to practice. You do not need recognition to make a difference. The most meaningful work in society often happens entirely behind the scenes. Just keep these 3 things in mind. Keep showing up, keep doing your best, keep lighting your lamp. Your effort has inherent value regardless of who is clapping for you. Because even if nobody notices your effort today, your light may literally be helping someone find their way through the darkness right now. So I want to leave you with this final, lingering question to really reflect on. Who is relying on your unseen light today? Think about that as you go about your invisible tasks. Keep shining anyway. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.